Yeah. So we did a really good project, or Keith did a really good project called Business Engagement, which he's going to talk about in a second. And we'll also talk about in a second the policy papers on energy that we've been doing. And we had a really good youth conference. Unfortunately, our youth members now have moved on to doing other things. So we do really need to try and re-engage with other youth people, youth leaders, to try and keep that going, because that was very successful as a way of engaging with the council. And we've had a lot of sort of behind the scenes engagement with Wiltshire Council, particularly with the climate team and the climate change task group. Big question about how effective it's been, but I think we're still there sort of asking them questions and challenging them constructively. And obviously we had the away day at the beginning of February, and we'll go into a couple of those in a bit more detail now. We'd hope to have the financial accounts ready. That normally we'd have those for an AGM. We're just waiting for a final bank statement, which hasn't come through. So we will share that with members as soon as we've got it. With the next slide. Yeah, so whoops, there we go. So quite recently, Julie, Nick and I, and helped by Sophie Fernie-Wisenthal, have been putting together these policy papers, which most of you will have seen, I'm sure. So we did the one on solar, and most recently the one on onshore wind. And we did press releases with these, and we got some coverage on sort of local press and radio and sort of internet TV type things. And we also sent them to all the environment leads on the area board. So the 17 area boards all got copies of these. I had some feedback from some of the councillors, not all of them, but I mean, at least they noted that we've got them. And we also sent the solar one to all the members of the Strategic Planning Committee, who are tomorrow meeting to discuss the Forest Gate planning application. Whether they take a notice or not is another thing, but at least they've got some facts, and hopefully some of them will read it. The onshore wind one, you're probably aware, because we've trailed this before, there's the consultation on the national planning policy framework, which includes the onshore wind questions, is closing tomorrow, end of day tomorrow. So if you haven't done so already, we would urge you to go to this link here, which is also in the chat. It's a very simple response mechanism that essentially allows you to send an email directly to the consultation team, and it's got suggested text, which obviously you can edit as you feel suitable for you. But the basic message is exactly the same message as we and many other organisations are sending, which is that the rules that should apply to onshore wind planning should be the same as apply to any other type of development. They shouldn't have a higher barrier than other types of development. And whereas what's proposed in the onshore wind consultation is still a higher level of essentially community support than it applies to any other type of planning application. And there was, you might have seen an article in The Guardian by Hugh Fearnley-Whittingstall yesterday that made exactly the same point. So I think that point's been quite widely made, but it's certainly a great opportunity for people with one day left to add their voice if they haven't done already. Julie, you want to come in on that?
Yeah, just quickly on that, another point on that. I know Maggie's here today from Warminster, Sustainable Warminster. Nice to have you online, Maggie. We reached out to some group members after the solar paper was issued to alert them that their area board meetings were coming up, and it might be a good thing to mention the papers and the policy that we have formulated to their area boards. And Maggie went along to the Warminster area board and had I think, a fairly positive reception. So it would be great, because these are quite in-depth pieces that take a lot of effort to put together. If we can all work together to extend their reach through by groups, members and groups taking them out into their area boards, that would be really, really impactful. And I don't know if you want to say anything about that, Maggie. You're very welcome to if you do.
yeah, you come in, make your...
Yes, thanks, Julie. I was actually quite surprised at how positive my reception was, but it was clear that some of the councillors at the meeting were involved in planning decisions and did sound pretty supportive. So it was a good thing that I went.
Great. Oh, thank you for doing that. I also took it along to our area board, so we had a meeting at the beginning of March, so I was able to raise both of those there. And as I mentioned just now, I sent them to the environment leads on each of the area boards. It would be much more effective if, like Maggie's done, that if our local groups in those area board areas were the ones to send them and engage with the councillors, because a local contact like that is much more powerful than someone centrally sending it. Okay, that's me done, I think. Over to Keith.
Good evening, everybody. I think it's about a year since I joined the steering group and took on the responsibility for the business engagement team. Been quite busy in the last sort of 10, 11 months. I think the basic starting point here was when I thought about the responsibilities of trying to engage with businesses in Wiltshire, which is quite a big task because there's a lot of them. Could be as many as 13,000 if you look at the number of registered sites. I didn't think it was tenable or viable just to go knocking on the doors of big businesses and saying, hello, I'm Keith from the WCA. I'd like to talk to you about your policy and targets for saving the planet. So that really launched the idea of trying to find out, by doing some proper research, what is going on with businesses in Wiltshire. The preset idea was that that would then put us in a position of having something of value, a piece of research information that nobody else had done, which may then enable us to knock on the doors of some of our key stakeholders, Wiltshire Council, Business West, Swindon Local Enterprise Board, Commerce Stations, area boards, and say, we think we know what's going on now with businesses in Wiltshire. Would you like to talk to us and get involved in impacting them? So that was the launch point. The starting point was to ask all the members of the WCA if they had in their locality what might be termed a sort of big hitter, big factory with a big stack on the top with loads of CO2 coming out of it, or somewhere using loads of milk and cheese and cows and beef and all that sort of thing. And that was a big long list of companies came in, quite varied in scale and scope, and kind of uncontrolled in terms of what market sector it was in, what type of business it was, etc. We took that and whittled it down a bit with some other suggestions and came up with 50 firms that covered the whole scope. Big organisations, service businesses, public sector, Great Western Hospital, Nationwide, Dyson Manufacturing, Cereal Partners, tyre making companies, whole wide range of businesses, BMW car plant, for example, and worked our way through those. And of course, that's a lot of work. So when I asked around the members of the WCA, who wants to involve me in doing loads of work, trawling through the policies and statements and targets of businesses? And unfortunately, it's quite surprising that there weren't many people in the WCA wanting to do that. So then I spent April, May recruiting volunteers through various online volunteering sites, which were quite good. That threw up 12 people who said they were really interested. And then we decided to develop a way of actually analysing, assessing and scoring individual companies, because there are lots of different sites stuff out there at the global level and the local level. And we distilled out a kind of question and answer section which asked each researcher to find a suitable piece of evidence and then judge how good that evidence was across a whole range of different sections, and then score each section. I think there's 45 scores in all for each assessment to be done. And in a nutshell, we looked at whether there was clear policy, had the organisation set some good targets with dates and meaning and clarity about what they're trying to cover. Were there good reports showing what they've done so far? Clarity for anybody from the outside, really. I mean, in my view, is anyone in the world involved with any business that does something to damage the climate, because we all breathe the same atmosphere. And what we were really interested in finding is, were was there good evidence that businesses have actually taken some actions, made some progress, and recorded improvements that might be in line with a 1.5 or 2 degrees C temperature rise? Quite detailed. Got to the end of all that work about early December, at which stage we were down to only 5 volunteers. So there's quite a few fell on the wayside. That was a bit of a learning point. But at least you knew the 5 who were left were skilled, committed, dedicated, intelligent people who did a load of really good work. During December, we pulled together all the numbers, wrote a report, and from some discussion, we came up with our main findings and recommendations. So the point we're at right now is we've got a report. It's being checked and read by some other people. I think I've got a relatively good school report. Probably about a B+, Adam, for me report, would you say?
I'd say A star.
Oh, come on.
Brilliant piece of work. No, it's really, I'm sure other people will agree when you see it. It is a very, very thorough and authoritative piece of work. And I'm really looking forward to us launching it because I think it will have an impact.
Yeah. Well, that's great. That means that in terms of trying to get a lever that opens doors, I seem to have produced something that's quite a big lever and quite high quality. So it might open a few good doors. That'd be good. We haven't got time to go through the report now. A lot of findings. It's available for people to look at if they want to. Not available for public release yet. We plan to launch this with a kind of media campaign later this month. That's the plan. Towards the end of March, getting it out in the media, perhaps getting me talking to on the radio or even on the TV. You never know your luck. Depends whether it's a big news day or a bad news day. And I've made a whole set of recommendations that appeal to different lobbying groups: central government, Wiltshire Council, local council, businesses, and even residents. What could they do to change and make business less carbon intensive? We may have a webinar where we talk through the slides, discuss the findings, have a bit of discussion. For the rest of the year, then it's about really following up and trying to get those doors open and get face-to-face meetings with people who should have some responsibility for the way businesses behave in Wiltshire. If you don't take the businesses along, even if Wilts Council do a brilliant job with all their own offices, all their own assets, all the services they buy, they're less, business, independent, private and publicly owned business is more than half of the impact in Wiltshire. I'll stop now. That's good enough. Thank you.
Great. What's next? Land use, yeah.
Okay, that's me. Just giving you a flavour with all these pictures on the screen of what we in the land use group have done over the last 12 months. And basically, we've been educating ourselves in a huge number of areas. We've had at least 7 speakers this year. We've covered everything from organic farming with Yatesbury. We actually did 2 things at Yatesbury, and one of them was a natural agricultural farm, which is a Japanese method of carrying things through without disturbing the soil. It was a really fascinating thing. And right next door, there's a very, very big farm that is doing no plough and all that sort of thing, which we visited, which was really, really interesting. So we had a site visit, and we're going to plan on one of those every year. But this year we went to Yatesbury. Tree planting, rewilding, all of that sort of stuff we were looking at on a couple of 3 meetings to discuss that, including a couple of meetings with Wiltshire Wildlife Trust, which really helped us understand a little bit more about where they were going on ancient trees and general nature recovery. They were really good too. So again, educating the group on what is going on and taking that information out into their own groups. Farming clusters was another one, but very early in the year we had somebody talking about farming clusters, and we're going to try and do some more of that this year. And at the end of, I think it was the end of 21 actually, we had Helen Browning from the Soil Association, who again was a really informative thing. We said we want to go ahead and visit her farm, which is just south of Swindon. So the whole year was spent in that sort of educational process. I don't think we had any particular target areas that we wanted to try and work a project through. But I think everyone has taken through this year a very, they've engaged a lot and they've got a lot of information that they're now using. And I have to say thanks to Claire and Sue, who are stalwarts in helping run the land use group. It's really helpful to have 3 of us working on it. And we look forward to talking to everybody next year or this year. We've got a plan already to take them through August, and I think that's on the website.
Andrew, you able to talk to this?
Okay, yes, and there's so much of it. I'm not going to talk to it directly. You can read it while I talk, ignore my speaking. Themes come out of here. All kinds of links with campaigners within Wiltshire, with groups in surrounding counties, and that's at a very early stage, I will admit, with the government and its Active Travel England agency and some naughty people who are trying to get more roads built in from Department for Transport. Okay, and spun off the Wiltshire Town Cycle Network Alliance. So, but what you are not seeing here is working with Wiltshire Council. But why? That's because Wiltshire Council's transport policy is not particularly climate friendly. They're talking the talk, they're not really walking the walk. And the Wiltshire Town Cycle Network Alliance is a prime example because they formed in order to be a non-hostile, non-adversarial umbrella group of local cycling campaigns working within the towns, not the countryside, to work with Wiltshire Council. And what did they find? Wiltshire Council isn't particularly interested in working with them. It's very hard to be non-adversarial with a county council that isn't very progressive and isn't really scoring high on its active travel and isn't therefore drawing the money down from government to really put into active travel schemes on the scale that we need. So there's some of the things we're doing and trying to do. Now, we, in our most recent meeting, we reviewed the suggestions that came from the away day and are starting to respond and build on those. So the first was Wiltshire Climate Alliance should become a valued expert stakeholder. We have experts in our campaign group, in our transport topic group, that are good at what they do, that have been paid to do it, that have been working for 10, 20, 30 years, not recognised as such, I think, by our members or by the public or Wiltshire Council. We need to work on that. Engage with planning applications and the transport implications. So many plans for buildings, commercial or housing developments, have a so-called green travel plan that isn't worth the space that it takes up. It's quite often just boilerplate. We need to really get stuck in, and the way to do that is to work with the highways officers to feed back into the planning officers. The suggestion was a public-facing influence campaign, and I think we want to work with policy papers. We've actually got a list of 20 policy papers we haven't written on transport, but we could do 1, 2 or 3. I want people to realise that active travel isn't enough, because in the presence of traffic congestion and traffic growth, the more vehicles you take off the road because people are using active travel, the more that vacuum is filled by other people driving their cars more. So you need to directly address road traffic reduction. You need to directly address so-called road improvements, which take huge amounts of money away from other more progressive spending. And you need to address the fact that out of town shopping and business development is still being built in Wiltshire. So that's a flavour. At the bottom line there, cargo bike food waste collection. That's a personal project that I've put in a grant application for. I just met people from Wiltshire Wildlife. They seemed keen on giving the grant. I'm shouting out now to local groups to see if you'd be like your town or community to be selected for pilot trials of food waste collection at the curbside from households for a period of 3, 4 or 5 weeks sometime later this year. Just put your names in the chat or email transport@wiltshireclimatealliance.org.uk, although this is a separate entity, and we've called it Go Green Bananas Community Interest Company. So that's a flavour for what we want to do on transport, really getting to grips with the difficulty of engaging with a council that doesn't want to put climate first in its transport policy. Thanks.
Great. Yes, in fact, you've got at least one volunteer there in the chat, which is great. Thanks, Hannah. Just adding to one point on that, one of our next policy papers that we're going to be doing, as Andrew mentioned, that there's a succession of those, is going to be around the active travel thing, because it's going to basically embarrass Wiltshire Council by highlighting the fact that they've been unsuccessful in bidding for any of this central government money around active travel, and sort of explaining the reasons why. And so we're hoping for quite a lot of traction around that one. The other thing, just before we come on to, I'll start the next slide in a second. Just one thing to mention around the energy topic group. I didn't do a slide on it, but we did that work earlier in the year around putting together a toolkit for local groups to run their own sort of energy saving workshop type things, based on actually the great work that Hannah did in Shurston, and we also ran one similar one in Corsham, and I know a number of other groups did so. But that work is still there on the website under the energy topic group if you want to, if any local groups want to pick that up. It's quite a easy toolkit, which makes it easy to run an event like that. Okay, should I move on to, so this is well, I mean, Andrew, do you want to cover this as incoming chair for the focus for the year?
Okay, incoming chair, assume I get elected.
This is your manifesto.
Well, yes. Now I'll give you a personal take on this because the text is there, you can read that. Why are these the major climate change issues? Well, guys, it's about greenhouse gases. It's about greenhouse gas emissions. So transport, this comes from road vehicles, it comes from trains, it comes from traffic, and they're producing CO2 and other gases in their exhaust. Energy, it's about gas being burnt in homes, in businesses as well. It's also about other electricity because that's being generated from fossil fuel fired power stations too. Land use, this is about the emissions that come from farms, nitrous oxide, methane, carbon dioxide, and the emissions that are not really being drawn down very much because we haven't got enough trees or good soil left at the moment to draw that down. Built environment I've covered. So it's very specific, guys, climate campaigning. It's about greenhouse gases. It's about getting us, Wiltshire, to net zero. Admittedly, UK's emissions are only 7% of the world's. Wiltshire's probably about 2% of Britain's, but everybody's got to be a team player. Wiltshire could set the lead if we succeed in our aims. So yes, policy papers, that's part of influencing the public, influencing councillors, making our position clear and very public. Business engagement, absolutely super, and crucial because business, of course, is vital. And I want to draw attention to Swindon and Wiltshire LEP, Local Enterprise Partnership, because that's a meeting, a body that has huge amounts of money to spend. Wiltshire Council's money is mostly committed to legal obligations. The LEP, SW LEP, has discretionary money, and if you look at their projects page, it's mostly being spent on road schemes. Maintain constructive engagement with Wiltshire Council. We have some constructive engagement, I'll admit it. We work well with the head of climate. There are officers. Wiltshire Council isn't a monolith. We need to maintain and build constructive engagement. And I think Wiltshire Climate Alliance and its member groups are very much potentially insiders giving advice, expressing people's views. And I would specifically like us to go back to working more with area boards. I think that if we have policies and papers, we can talk amongst ourselves. We know what we believe and we're surprised other people don't understand it. But I'd like us to be organising presentations which we can rotate around area boards, because there's nothing like speaking to councillors face to face to raise their awareness of the issues. I'd also like with area boards that our member groups start to apply for area board funding so that we are spending Wiltshire's money on our climate movement. And I'll come to more of that later on in the meeting. The others, I'll skip those consultations, of course, and I think the local plan and local transport plan are two things linked together, which will be a very, very big task coming up. And to do that well, we might need fundraising so that we can employ expert witnesses and barristers and so on, because that's what developers are doing. Website, that's a thing we're working on. Improve support for member groups, you tell us, and we will see what we can do for you. And the general election, which one? I won't comment on that one, but we did a good job, I think, last time round.
Yeah. Can I just come in? Thank you, Andrew. Just a couple of builds on that. The Wiltshire Council, we met Nick Holder, who's the new cabinet member for climate change, at the rally that we had in County Hall last week. And we've now secured a meeting with him. It's not for a couple of months, but nevertheless, he's agreed to see us, and so we'll try and build a relationship there. The point about area boards also, Andrew, is absolutely critical, and we now have the names of the environment representatives, and I think it's really key that we gear up with our support of our local groups to try and keep climate change on the agenda of every area board meeting. And we're very happy to come out and speak if you want someone to speak to a policy paper or something like that.
Okay. As transport lead, so I've booked a meeting with Caroline Thomas, the new cabinet member for transport. Very hard for her not to be an improvement on the previous one from the climate point of view. So we are optimistic there. I've also, on the day of our of the council meeting and our rally, was introduced to a brand new senior officer who is the boss of both Arrow and Crampton and Wiltshire's head of the waste services. So I'm looking forward to meeting, talking to her as well. Julie.
Yeah, just before we move on, I'd just like to say that overarching all of this is a dedication to improving the diversity of the membership of WCA. And, you know, bringing in a lot more younger members and a lot more ladies in leadership roles.
Indeed, we all support that very much. Yeah. Okay, should we move on? And by the way, if any questions of anyone else do ask, yeah. Julie, media communications, why don't you?
Yeah, okay. So I don't know, I haven't really talked about this before. My background has been in marketing and public relations and communications and event management and all that sort of stuff in my career, as well as in founding businesses and start-up to PLC-sized businesses. But what I've been enjoying a lot is getting my kind of legs back in the PR side of things, working with the amazing, I must say, Sophie Fernley-Whittingstall, who is a former journalist, I don't know if you know that, and writes amazingly well, alongside Adam and Nick, actually. A big shout out for Adam with his writing skills, and Nick as well, who have been, you know, absolutely amazing to work with on the policy papers. And we built a media list of key media around the county. We're still building on that. Working with the media always depends on building a relationship that takes time to found. So, you know, our press work in the past, I think WCA's press work has been a bit erratic. So it's slow going at the moment, but we are getting some nice coverage on fairly high profile channels. So a couple of, both the policy papers were covered on That's TV, and that goes up, I think that's showing on just on Twitter, about 500 hits so far on those pieces, which is decent. And then we've had BBC Radio Wiltshire coverage. They reckon now that Radio Wiltshire's got about 80,000 listeners a week, so maybe sort of 8,000 average a day. That was for the Members' Day, which Christian did a really great job with an interview on that. And also a couple of stories, a couple of different pieces picked up about the parade and the discussions at County Hall. all kind of with an angle that, really framing the current government as being fairly much the bad boys. So that was interesting. It was around the disabled drivers allow free parking being taken away by the local council. But it was also there was mention of the need to focus on important things like climate change and vulnerable people. Anyway, so that was that. So if you have contacts, if any of you listening has media contacts, please let me know, because it was much more effective if you have a personal line into somewhere. Great, and I'll try and get this to work, but I have to keep making sure the focus is there. Okay, so we're on to this now. Back to you, Adam.
Thank you. Yes, so this is the sort of most formal part of the AGM. So we this is the steering group as it stands at the moment. So a few new names. They're delighted to have Julie joining us in the last couple of months, and has made a huge impact already around communications. And also very hot off the press, Rose Fenton, who was at the away day, who's from the organisation Culture Declares Emergency, has agreed to join us as a arts group topic group convener. So that's adding a little bit of diversity. We need a lot more diversity. We've lost our youth members, so we're very keen to see some younger people and just generally make it more diversity and broaden our skills. And we do have vacancies for more members. So I should also mention that Christian Lang, who's obviously been hugely active as a member of the steering group right from the start, is very busy as his business is really taking off now over the summer months. So he's standing down from the steering group temporarily. I'd like to just thank him for all that huge work that he's done, particularly most recently around organising the event, which was a huge amount of work that he put into that. But he's done lots and lots for us over the time. So if anyone else is interested in standing, please put your name forward at any point. We've got gaps so we can co-opt people on under our constitution. But those are the names of the people who are standing at the moment. So I'm not sure the best way to indicate this, probably by just, if we go back to full screen and just people raise their hands, or I don't know if there's a thumbs down if you object to anyone. We could do it that way, but we just want, from a constitutional point of view, we just want to see that we've got a members, a sort of assent to this steering group composition.
Okay, we can screen capture a thumbs up or a reaction thumbs up, easy, or a thumbs down, whichever.
Yes, if we stop the screen share so that we can see a gallery of everyone.
Yeah.
We could either do does everyone want to do a thumbs up to all of the above, or we could go through them one by one. Let's try it this way first then. Can we see if there's a majority thumbs up to all of those people? Please reach for your reactions or your thumbs and give us a very clear thumbs up. So some of you have done a thumbs up from the reactions, and some have done it with real thumbs. We're taking screenshots, some of us, and my thumb is going up to everyone except. Well, I vote for myself as well. Yes.
Yes, we're allowed to vote.
Great. And I'm going to ask if there's anyone who wanted to abstain or not put a thumb up. Speak now or put something in the chat, or forever hold your peace. Any reservations about all of those? Strong enough to abstain?
Adam, you still get your thumb up. I wonder whether that's an objection.
I'm trying to raise it down. There, it's gone down there.
I'm abstaining because I don't know the group. It's my first time of being at one of your meetings. So I'm very interested, but I'll abstain this time.
That's very fair and honourable, Gail. Thank you very much. And we'll try and make sure we identify ourselves to you. And in the meantime, if you go to wiltshire-climate-alliance.org.uk and go to About Us, you find there's a revised list of the steering group candidates who, as a result of a minute ago, are now the steering group members.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Great. Shall we go back to the screen share then? And see what the slides have in store for us. As we've had nearly 3/4 of them. Great. Shall we go back to the screen share then? And see what the slides have in store for us. As we've had nearly 3/4 of an hour so far. Let's see if we can keep this to under an hour and a half for our own sakes. With the next slide, in fact, as a spoiler, is to talk to you just a little bit about what would be involved in being a steering group member. The commitment is as small or as large as you like. And we've recently talked about inviting people to taste and try being on the steering group if you don't feel you can commit to the whole year, or if you haven't got a topic group to lead. People who'd like to just join in for a while to see what the culture is, the vibes, or because they want to contribute in some specific way. I think we would welcome people coming on board if you advise us first. And we'll be asking you to introduce yourself in more detail if you do that. That surely is one way to welcome people in. And even if you contributed and helped in only one way and came to only 2 meetings and then fell away because you've got other things, you've got a life to lead, that would be every little helps, I think. There is a WhatsApp group that the steering group use, and there is a shared email that we also use, and we meet only on Zoom, I think it's true to say. I think none of us knew what any of us looked like from the neck down for about the first 2 years. So yes.
Andrew, can I just ask a question?
Please do, Sarah, yes.
Are the steering group meetings all on Zoom?
I believe that's true, yes.
Okay.
We usually have about once a year, we have a sort of steering group away day to face, sort of bit of a more of a strategic planning type thing, but all our regular meetings are on Zoom.
Sarah, how do you feel about that?
I would like to come along for a bit, but I don't really know how much I've got of any use to offer. But, I would
come
be
along,
interested
Sarah, it's fine.
Yeah.
Whereabouts are you from and what are you involved in at the moment?
I'm in Shrewton, and I'm not involved in anything apart from coming along to these meetings every month. I was toying with the idea of setting something up in the village, but I spoke to a couple of people who initially said they wanted to help and they couldn't commit, and I didn't feel I had the energy to do it on my own.
We also had a post in the chat from Hannah Griffin, who's, I think you're also from Shrewton, yes? Expressing
That's Shurston.
Shurston. Sorry, Shurston, Shrewton.
Shrewton near Salisbury. I don't know where Shurston is.
Near Malmesbury.
Not near
North Wiltshire. Yeah,
No,
near Burnham.
Shrewton.
About as far away as you can get from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brilliant, Shrewton. Shurston
Perfect.
twinned with Shrewton. That would be brilliant.
Be in
Because
touch, Sarah. We'll get in touch with you separately and have a chat about that.
Okay. Thanks.
lovely, and I'm very grateful to Hannah for putting up the possibility that Shurston could be selected for a cargo bike food waste collection trial. I talked to one councillor about this in Bradford and Avon. They're very sceptical. They talked to Wiltshire's head of waste. He's worried about health and safety, of course, as you do. But the constructive side of that conversation was that they've suggested a number of other waste streams or recycling and circular economy activities that we could do with our e-cargo bikes if there are health and safety showstoppers to doing the food waste itself. So there may be other waste streams, and the group that's running that will keep you all posted. More broadly, I just want to say, this is what, 7 years to 2030, 6 years and a bit and counting. 2030 is a target date for us, for Wiltshire Council, for a lot of the local councils with the climate emergency. We need to be doing a bit of a sprint. We need to get some project management. We need to get some timed targets in my view. We need to be monitoring emissions or proxies like traffic, I don't know, trees, cattle, new houses, retrofits, because you can't manage what you don't monitor. And whether Wiltshire gets on board, whether Wiltshire's delivery plan is adequate or not, we will deal with them as we go along. And so I hope we can take a very practical, results-focused approach. We can't just go on talking to each other about how dedicated we are to the well-being of the planet. This is partly about actions.
Okay. Oh, we've got a question there from Hannah, or a comment.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, because I work for a local authority, I work for Swindon Borough Council, and just, I'm sure everyone's totally well aware of this, but just how stretched officers are, and like how much can we actually expect from a council. I think it's really great, this idea of getting businesses involved in things. And just, yeah, just obviously there are lots of decisions that are made and things by the council that we can push, but just bearing in mind like the capacity of local authorities is really at rock bottom. So yeah, just bearing that in mind.
Yeah, can I come back on that? I mean, absolutely, completely get your point. I don't know if you've looked at the net zero review that was done by Chris Skidmore recently, but he was recommending that climate change should be central to every decision that local councils make, as well as obviously a national government. And really, that's what we've been saying since we started, that climate change isn't an additional piece of work for councils. It just should be effectively job number one in every decision that they make. And at the moment, it is very much an additional thing. Oh, what should we do about climate change when we stop doing the other thing, you know, when we've done everything else that we're doing? And I know that sounds a rather simplistic answer, but if they truly did that, rather like Andrew was saying, they would stop spending lots of time and energy on things like major road developments and things, and they would, because that's not consistent with that goal, and they would do things that were consistent with the goal. So it would be more a question of reprioritizing rather than additional work. I know that's an incredibly simplistic answer, but that at the same time, it probably is, you know, part of the answer anyway. But that's not the officers, is not the officers' decision, clearly. That's the political councillors' decision to respond to that. The officers have to do what the political people tell them to do. So, you know.
I agree, and I think we're in a position to step in if Wiltshire Council officers are not putting climate first and foremost, or if they're under the pressures you described, Hannah, pressures of work, pressures of resources, then we're starting to have the strength and capacity to take some of the load off them, do some of that work, put out public statements and get findings, and maybe in due course spend money on consultants who can deliver usable recommendations. Thanks.
I'll just come in there, Andrew.
Bill, yes.
Yeah, picking up all those points, I think the message we're getting from officers in the Wiltshire Council is the same. But and the danger is we overload the wrong people if we're not careful, particularly when they put a climate team in place, and every time anybody talks about climate to the council, they are the people who engage. We need to be engaging with every department, and I think the problem is there's too much of a funnel, and we need to break open that funnel and try and get into multi-streams into the council. How we do that, maybe we'll talk about in a minute, but I really recognise what's being said is that the load on the council is really high for all sorts of other reasons, and their priorities are going to be always very difficult in terms of the spend they make. That's me.
Moving on, as time ticks by, who's going to be giving us the details of our findings from the Members' Day? Was this something Christian was going to do? Thanks.
Julie, yeah.
Yeah, I'm doing this. Hi. Yeah, I completely I just wanted to second everything that was said about supporting the council. I think I joined WCA a couple of years ago, and the whole atmosphere with the council was totally different to the way it is now. The Members' Day was a really good example of that. You know, we had such a good representation from the council at the Members' Day and engagement, and that was wonderful. And I think going forward, we've got these events could be really valuable in cementing that relationship, because as you know, when you get together in person, it makes a massive difference and you get to know people properly. So I think I sent to you I know I sent to you a link to a survey a little while ago, just after the Members' Day. I sent it out to people that had registered on the day, so that this is only, these responses are only from people that attended. So we haven't actually polled people that didn't attend. So if there's anyone here tonight that didn't attend, we would like you to let us know why. If it wasn't for a reason other than, you know, you just got too busy, or if there was a particular reason that it didn't appeal to you, you could let us know at the end of this session. That would be really good. So the survey findings at the moment, and they're still coming in, but at the moment we've had about 30 responses out of 75 attendees that were there both in the morning and in the afternoon. So in the morning, the session rated 3.9 out of 5, which is not too bad. The key takeaways were that people were most interested in community energy. That session was most popular, followed by learning from other groups. And there was a bit of a theme in the feedback that people would have liked to have had more time to hear from more groups and discuss and meet other groups. Also, how to engage young people stood out as well. Then in the workshop in the afternoon, that rated 3.4 out of 5. And the most important issues, a bit more balanced on this one. So lobbying and policy making came out strongly, which is good because that's what we're doing. How to collaborate with other groups and presenters and keep the groups energized came out strongly. And there was, again, feedback on this that we needed more time to discuss that. I think that's really true, perhaps something we can do in these meetings. And also active travel and addressing transport was a priority. So again, with energy as well. Would you like another members workshop? Most people said they would, definitely. Most people 1 year is enough for, which is quite good news for us because it took a lot to do it. But on the other hand, some people would like to meet again. So I think there's potential for smaller events in person and maybe topic group events in person. And then things that we could work on, which is what you said. So more time hearing from member groups, broader representation of women as facilitators and speakers as well, I think. Consider funding across groups. So what that means is that would groups be, rather than asking you on the day to donate some money, any old money, could we just ask each group to pay a set fee to attend, say £20 or something? And then we'd know we could cover the cost of the day. Also to have smaller groupings, because some of the tables were too large and people couldn't hear each other very well around the tables, and a cosier venue space. It was a bit big for the number of people there at times and got a bit chilly in the evening. And unless you were dancing, of course, like me. And there's a lot less on the agenda. We need a lot less on the agenda as well, so that we can really focus on items rather than whiz through them so much. And more time to get to know each other and relax would be nice. So any feedback on this? Anyone on the call tonight that didn't come and would like to say why?
I just want to add, this isn't demanded. Why didn't you come? It's not
No,
that.
no. We're just interested in, whether you felt the content wasn't interesting, or you felt the venue was, too far away, or you felt that it wasn't something that appealed to you, going to a live in-person event. That would be interesting. Any comment? Any chat?
I think, Julie, one of the key issues is the venue location. You took a poll of postcodes, did you not? And that one showed the distribution is right across the county. So it's incredibly difficult to choose a venue that works for everybody in a reasonable way, which is an enormous county. And trying to get it in the right place is very tricky. And maybe we have to move it to a slightly different location every time we have a meeting like that.
Possibly, but if anyone wants to just message with that or email contact at Wiltshire, or email me, I'll put my email in the chat anyway, because I am interested. I mean, the actual postcode analysis that we did from the survey, as Phil said, showed the even distribution across the county. So we were pretty much bang in the middle, having it in Devizes. But and we did attract some people from other counties because we weren't too far from them as well.
We agonized over the venue, didn't we? And
we did.
By public transport is tricky, and getting home before midnight was a matter of luck partly. Trowbridge is another possibility. Wiltshire Wildlife Trust Langford Lakes Centre, Wiltshire Wildlife Trust are dying to host us there at some point in time. But if we're not having one of these literal same events until next year, that does give us a bit more time. I see, Anthony, you've got a hand up.
Yes, I mean, I was there in the morning, but I couldn't stay the whole day. And I think maybe some people might be put off by the length of the meeting. And I would say just what you've said about Langford Lakes is a brilliant place.
Okay.
And I have been at a meeting there as well, so it's a good room for meeting in. It wouldn't hold the same numbers as the Corn Exchange, but it's certainly a good place.
Thank you. That's good feedback. No, you're right. It would be a smaller gathering. I got from Kate in the chat about the location. So we'll have a look at this offline, and as I say, if anybody does want to talk about this to me directly, or any of us, that's great. Okay, moving on because of time. Where are we? There we are. This is Bill's bit.
Sorry guys. Yeah, I've done it. Thank you. My neighbour has told me I wasn't on. Yeah, so interesting feedback from the 4 groups we had in the afternoon. I think one of the problems that occurred in that afternoon session was that maybe we just tried to do too much, and I can only apologise for that. But we did get some really, really useful information out of it. And I think the point at the top is the key. And I think, it's really reassuring to us as a group, as trying to work out what WCA should do, is the campaigning and lobbying came out on every group. So rather than building a solar farm or whatever, we should be campaigning and pushing business, pushing the council, pushing whoever we have to push to try and get climate at the centre of things. So that was really helpful. And it just helped us and encouraged us to do more of what we're doing. We had the 4 groups, and some of them came out with a single purpose. In transport came out in the end. I mean, there were 2 transport groups, but I think it saw the first one almost fitted into the second one in terms of what could be done. And the suggestion is to have a citizens' assembly, get county-wide opinion on active travel. So it's another focus group that says, how do we get this active travel into the forefront, and how do we do that and have a citizens' assembly? Now, a citizens' assembly is a real challenge. Park that, because that's something for that group to sort out. But it's a really good idea if it can be done. On the built environment, that's responding to the local plan consultation particularly, but using Baines and Cornwall, who've already done their local plans and put climate at the heart of it. So we need to get Wiltshire to be effectively plagiarising those as much as they can. And that was a really good thing to come out of that. On land use, we've got a couple of choices there, but I think it can, including climate action in all council policies, strangely enough, and waste collections, which Andrew's been talking about. So I think that could be a focus for us in the next 12 months. And finally, energy, we've already talked about solar and wind. And, you know, there's so many things in the energy group that wanted to be talked about. So we've just got to be careful. We select something, otherwise we'll try and do everything. And we can only do it on that bottom line. We need volunteers to help us do it. So if you feel you'd like to work in one of those groups, it's a project rather than a topic, if you like. We're focusing on something, but put your name in the chat or come to one of us later and say, I'm really keen to work on that particular issue, and we'll slot you into those teams. Okay, and I'll talk a bit more about that later.
Okay, before we move on, I'm going to ask you to move a tiny bit. I partly or mostly agree with what Bill said. I do think there's some niches where we need green entrepreneurs to step in. And if we have to spin those enterprises out or seek people out and try and encourage them, support them to start businesses, whether it's retrofitting, food waste collection, and so on, I hope that we can carry on having that as one of the tools in our toolkit. I just want to ask Julie to go back to slide 15, 4 slides back, for one specific reason, something that worries me. Thanks. Net zero emissions, that's what carbon neutral 2030 is all about. And it just worries me that net zero emissions was the smallest of those slices of pizza on that pie chart. And I'd like to explore that with members and with the steering group another time. Perhaps it's not catchy, perhaps it's hard to relate to, perhaps it's not glamorous, perhaps people are over it. I don't know. But
it's just too general.
I think that's probably a good explanation. Thank you. Bill, I'll lower my hand. Margaret.
Just unmuting. I got there now. The reason it's so small is because it actually sits behind everything. It underpins everything. So actually, that is the entire pie chart. The fact that when you describe it in those terms, people don't see it as being the priority, but it is. It is everything. Now I'll shut up.
Actually, Margaret, while you're on, I think you raised a question in chat about energy group meetings. I should have said that earlier, but if we can go back to that slide about sort of the one we were just on, sort of, yeah. So what we're focusing on under the energy heading is very much these policy papers that we've been doing around solar and wind, and we will be looking at things like the grid reinforcement and so on like that. And we're doing this through this PR group, which has been a lot more effective at actually getting stuff done. And quite frankly, the reason I'm not doing the energy topic groups at the moment is because I didn't feel we were actually having any impact, really. We did some good work around the, that toolkit I mentioned for the workshop, setting up an energy saving event. But apart from that, I haven't felt that we've got really any traction in that topic group particularly. So I'm not proposing to run them at the moment until and unless we get some greater engagement around specific issues like these types of issues, and then we can refocus those. What I don't want to be doing is running meetings just for the sake of having meetings, because I think that's a bit of a distraction. So, but we will revisit that as we refocus following this meeting.
Yeah, I agree. We need action, not words.
Okay, ready to roll on? Yep. I think Steering still digesting what we got out of that. Am I unmuted? Yes, good. New Arts Group. Well, this has been, I think this is a fantastic development for a couple of reasons, and I'll come to them. It's been an ambition of some of us on the steering group, myself, Julian Jones, others, to see an arts group, and the arts will cover both visual arts and performing arts, and it'll cover artists who do some money making, very few do it full time, and also artists who are more activist hobby artists who want to do like floats for a parade or placards, or join in a samba band, anything. So we were lucky to get Rose Fenton from Cocktail de Players Emergency to come along. We had a breakout table at 5:30 at the event. After the main breakouts, enough artists and would-be organisers got together for us to really plant a seed there. You can see the slide that says that there are folks we will be bringing on board from those various towns. One of our activist volunteers is closely linked with artists in Bath, and that's hugely useful as well. Swindon we could do with another link person, but there you go. So please, if you have artist friends or want to participate in this, performing arts could include music, theatre, comedy, dance, you name it, circus skills, and there could be shows, there could be contributions to rallies, processions, parades, visual arts, right? Building giant automata for parades or putting murals on walls. We really want to raise the visible profile of the climate emergency in Wiltshire and Swindon here. So we've already got some plans. Wiltshire Music Centre had a plan to do something, and they've welcomed us with open arms to join in. Rose is looking at working closely with Pound Arts in Corsham, and I think has approached their programmer curator, Russ. There's a Chippenham person we can work with. Now, going into, is this on the next slide, or is it part of this same slide? I'm sorry. Wiltshire Arts Climate Action. I acted fast after the meeting. I formed a little autonomous spin-off group called Wiltshire Arts Climate Action. It has a constitution. I've applied to a grant. The reason it was Trowbridge Area Board was because that was the timing of the area board meetings, and it wanted to be before the end of the Wiltshire Council financial year. £5,000 will be matched. They will release that much money if we can match it with £5,000 worth of donations from businesses and other sources. Of course, the grant hasn't been given yet, but we're getting positive vibes from the officers and from the councillors involved. Now, the link that I want to talk about is the link with young people. We've mentioned diversity, we've mentioned women, and we've briefly mentioned young people. The young people we've had have been excellent. They've all been doing their degrees, got their masters, and gone off to get jobs. We can't just put signs up on street corners saying, young people, come and be involved in Wiltshire Climate Alliance. We do that by engaging people, young people, in activities that they relate to, that empower them, that get them to express themselves and their climate concerns. This is my belief. And so I was about to run these art-based games in Bradford Avon Youth and Community Centre a week before the lockdown. The event was cancelled in March 2020, and there's a system of art-based games that I'm working with, and I'm very keen to train other people to run these particular art-based games, structured art-based games, which end up producing very large canvases. Second strand to this is to bring in young people's artwork. When the lockdown came, I instead ran an online young people's climate art competition and got some brilliant entries from school kids in Bradford and Avon, which are waiting to go up on walls. There's bureaucracy there, there's red tape, but we have had offers of walls from landlords. My strong belief is that young people want to be heard and seen. I believe that the whole community in Wiltshire, the public, the councillors, should be seeing expressions of climate emergency concern all over public spaces in Wiltshire. And what we have found out in the past, and the fantastic coup that Bill and others achieved at Wiltshire Council in February 2019, I think it was that having young people speak at Wiltshire full council meeting swung enough councillors over to voting to support the climate emergency resolution, because young people like Greta Thunberg and so on have a voice. People listen to them, they're authentic, they haven't got political axes to grind. The 21st century is their future and they are facing serious problems. So I think that councillors of any politics are receptive to messages that come directly from the voices of young people. So this is a way to get them involved in doing art. And if they're involved in doing art, some of them might want to get involved in other activities and start working closely with and in Wiltshire Climate Alliance or its member groups. So I've taken the time to a lot of time to tell you about this because I do feel strongly about it, and I would extremely much welcome expressions of interest. Julian, are we about to set up a before I come to you, Kate, are we about to set up an email address called arts@wiltshireclimatealliance.org.uk in the next week or so?
Yep.
Fantastic. Rose Fenton has already agreed to serve on the steering group for a while, and I'll ask you, Kate, to unmute and chip in. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm really excited to hear you talk about this because I completely agree. You know, art is an amazing way to reach people in a way that facts and figures can't, right? Because it can appeal to emotions and get those messages across. So in my role as Climate and Biodiversity Officer in Chippenham, I'm putting on an Eco Future Fest in April. And as part of that, I'm running a couple of art competitions. So the first one is Art for the Environment, and I'll put the link in the website in the chat in a moment. So I've got sponsorship. So there's two themes, the climate crisis, what's happening right now, and also a green future, because I want to, as part of the festival, help people envisage a positive future. Because again, this is another way to reach people, right? To kind of, to think about how amazing things would be when all these changes have been made and to have something to build towards. So I'm trying to use art to get people involved with that. I'm also running a children's competition, young person under 18 competition, art competition. So if you're in the Chippenham area, please do have a look at the competition and enter and share it with your contacts. And also as part of Eco Future Fest, I'm arranging to have some music, some spoken word and some poetry. I've got someone who runs an organisation called Climate Play, and she does this, she does serious play with climate Lego. And that's to engage adults. It uses a kind of a learning theory where you kind of like you learn as you move. So I'm really interested in how we can appeal to people in different ways. And I'm open to a conversation. I would like to have a conversation about putting on some more art events. So some of the things you've mentioned, Andrew, about games evenings and so forth. I could be, you know, I'd be really interested in maybe seeing if there's something we could work on putting on together in Chippenham.
Great.
Brilliant. That's so welcome, and I'm beating myself up for not kicking this group off a year or more ago. So thank you so much, Kate. Let's talk about that. And I think my telepathy is detecting a round of applause from everyone. Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew.
Okay. Over to Bill, I think.
Yeah, okay. Thank you very much for all that attended on the 21st. It was a really useful event for a lot of reasons, really. I mean, it was a pretty cold and miserable day, but it was okay. It didn't rain. We got there about 9:45, and we had interesting outpouring from council officers because we did have some serious players coming out to see us. I mean, firstly, Graham Wright, who's the chair of the Climate Emergency Task Group, came out and gave an overview where he sees the council going, and he was fairly blunt about how badly they were performing, which is good to hear from a councillor who actually leads the Climate Emergency Task Group. And I think it's his frustration. He's showing his frustrations in what he said, and it was actually reported in the press too, which I think was a good bounce for us, and certainly a reminder to the leader of the council who came out, and Nick Holder, who's the new cabinet member for environment and climate change, which is also quite useful. So Graham set the scene really in terms of what they weren't doing. So we didn't have to actually say very much at all, although they did get quite a lot of questions, particularly Nick and Richard. Nick is new to the role, relatively speaking, and he's still finding his feet. But he was speaking very positively about engagement. And we've, as Adam has said already, we've now got a meeting with him. He's agreed to a meeting, and I'm going to push for one earlier than the end of April, because I actually think, picking up the things that people have said in this meeting this evening, we need to get pushing at departments and not pushing through the funnel of Nick Holder and the senior officers who were there as well, because it's hard work for those senior officers to manage everything, and we need to spread that load into, we need to talk to the guys who are writing policy for all the departments in the council. So I'll be pushing for that, but we've also got this formal meeting with them at the end of April, because almost immediately after that, they're presenting their 6-month report on where they've got to on climate. And we're being offered the chance as the WCA to review that prior to publication. So we're getting somewhere which enables us to talk to them, as we've been saying, in a constructive way. Richard, who handed the reins to Nick, because I think Richard wanted to hang on to them, I believe, because he carried it through from the beginning as that cabinet member, but he also carried it as a leader and wasn't giving it enough attention. So a little plus for him that he's actually realized he needed to appoint somebody else. But unfortunately, he sort of reversed Nick's position and was very political about how things were going and how things couldn't go any further forward because of central government blockage, blah, 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 blah. I think we've got to try and work under Richard and push the other members of cabinet to do more, to make him start to change. And that means go to the departments and push there. So very positive outcome from all of that, because we've got the meeting, we've broken down the door again. And I think we've got to keep that door open now and work hard to talk about it. And in our very short breakouts, because we will have some, I'd like you to be thinking about what are the key big questions about climate we want to be pushing through that door. Okay, thank you.
I just got one comment, which is that all councils are suffering from swinging central government cuts, but some of them are doing better on climate than others. So breakouts, let's keep this fairly brief. And so when you introduce this, can we be a bit liberal on not asking everyone to address all of those questions? Who's going to introduce this and give us the briefing on how this is going to work?
Do you want me to do that, Adam?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, so the idea originally, I think we've got nothing up time to deal with all of this. So the idea was that we were pretty broad on energy and land use, and we wanted to try and get those focused down to one of each, so that we've got one for each of the four elements. And maybe we can do that fairly quickly and come to a realization of what we would like to see as the ideal outcome. And perhaps, as we're short of time, we will only pick one of those to actually decide in our groups what we'd like to see as that outcome from those choices of the focus groups we're trying to put together. And then my point from just the last slide is the other question should be answering is what one major specific issue should we take into Wiltshire Council through those doors now? I think if we leave it at that for the moment, if we can get through that much in 10 minutes, I think we'll be doing pretty well. So somebody in the breakout groups, please, can you keep a note of the things that you come to a conclusion on and try to come to a conclusion if you can. If you can't, then we've had a good chat and that's fine. But it would be useful for WCA as a group to understand and be helped by you guys to give pointers in the right direction. Okay, who's setting it up, please?
Julian, I think you're setting it up. And what?
Can I just ask, just to be, because you've got another one on the screen here, how can WCA better support member group collaboration? Do you want us to do that as well?
Well, if we get to that point, yes, we could do that. Maybe
I think the point is, we're talking about resources, weren't we? We need resources to help to do these things. So if we can all, you know, pool resources a bit, then that might help to get these things done. But it's a question of, you know, who's willing to help in that way and how to do it, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you. The more people that say, yes, I'd like to help on that, and we talked about that earlier, please, please, please come forward, because we really do need that, because we may not be able to deal with all the targets we're aiming at if we haven't got enough helpers around us. And I understand everyone's busy, but actually it'd be really helpful. Andrew, you could say something.
Yes, I don't want to throw a spanner in the works. We are assuming that everyone's up for breakouts right now. It'll take the meeting past 8:30, because even if the discussion is 5 or 6 minutes, the feedback will probably be 10 minutes. And then we've got a few business matters to deal with in another 2 minutes after that, such as question of a coach to London. So
Yeah, but Andrew, for picking that up, Andrew, do we want to have breakout groups at this meeting, or do we want many people to settle and do it at the next meeting?
Should we just do the next steps one quickly, and then if people want to stay for breakouts for 10 minutes, they can. If they want to drop off,
yeah,
let people vote
okay.
with their feet.
Great idea. So people will be given the option of leaving, and then we'll have the breakouts. You can leave any time.
So go to the next slide then. People were asking about the coaches. Yeah. So the demonstration. Who's best to talk about this?
Anybody from XR here today? Richard?
I haven't seen Richard. I mean, basically, Richard was handing out leaflets about this at the parade. So there's this big demonstration over that weekend, starting on the Friday the 21st, and that's particularly the big day. They're aiming to get 100,000 or so more people to sort of surround the Houses of Parliament. So we definitely want to sort of support that as much as possible. If you go to any XR sort of website or something, you'll find the details. There's just a sort of barcode on or a QR code on the link.
Can I just make a point there, Adam? This is not a specific XR, it's a demonstration of all campaigning groups, and it represents people like Friends of the Earth, Greenpeace, anybody who's Wildlife Trust, all those people are going. So, yeah, it's a bit of a naughty thing really from our point of view, is calling it XR. XR started this, and they're pushing every campaigning group in the country to come.
Really good point. So we would exactly, and we would like to sort of have a Wiltshire Climate Alliance representation, and indeed member groups representation. So we just want to encourage as many people to go. And so the question of, do we do a coach ourselves? Probably not. I think it could be tricky to organise, but if there's enough takers, perhaps we can. XR will be doing coaches. Obviously, people can catch trains and so on. But and Val raised the point in the chat that it'd be quite nice to use some of our funds to do a banner for WCA or something to show that. And I think we've actually got enough in the kitty probably to do that without having another fundraiser, because we made a bit of a profit at the away day, and we had a bit of funds anyway. So I suggest we just go ahead and do that. But the key thing is to know how many people are coming. Not now, but just to get it in your diaries and talk to your local groups and try and sort of encourage as many people as possible to come along.
Andrew.
Yeah.
Yes.
Andrew, it's Val Jarvis. I don't know if anybody can see me, but anyway.
Yes,
just to say that I've also said about having flags with Wiltshire Climate Alliance on, because all these things can be used in the future, and it will show our presence more as a group. But it is important to stress that XR have got something in their agenda or comes up to me, because I'm part of XR, and they would like to know how many people are going, because it's important for them. Obviously, I think they've got about 12 to 15,000 at the moment. Well, yeah, about that a number, and of course they'd like to know. So I don't know how we can let people know unless we have a number from us.
Okay, I'm tempted to think that this is a matter for member group, local group action, to go to the link, to contact their XR group or their Friends of the Earth group, or organise among their local groups, or coordinate between local groups, because the steering group is not going to be able to get into the business of booking coaches, and also do the other things that support our action groups and our members, in my personal opinion. But just to say something positive, banners and flags are brilliant. Keith, you said that would be a great arts project. I agree. I drafted a Wiltshire Climate Alliance flag probably 2 years ago now, and it's a combination of the Wiltshire flag and the international climate emergency flag. And and there would be time to produce that as a finished design and have it painted or printed onto materials. If anyone is interested in that, be glad to share it and have any feedback on it. It might be no good.
I think no, it's great. I think in the interest of time, you're absolutely right. Let's just make sure we as WCA are pushing this, so raising the awareness on it as much as possible. And the link, Andrew's put the link in of how to register that you're interested in going to the XR thing.
I think because is doing their new policy of non-disruption, police liaison is very important, and I thoroughly agree that if they have a good idea of numbers, that will help the hardworking organisers to make it a successful event and get good media.
Well, Andrew, Richard does police liaison really well.
Yes.
Andrew, can I pick up a point? I think it would be useful, as Stu said, maybe just as a straw poll to see how many people from this meeting would actually be going. I'm not saying we do anything, but I do say also that both Richard and if people want to contact me, or we probably Mel in Chippenham or whatever, we can give more information on what's going to be happening, and we're very happy to share the common messages that are coming through from other groups. So we can put that on our website if we need to. Show of hands. Blimey, that's good. That's excellent. Okay, so there's a definite need to have at least one banner, if not more, and definite flags for WCA. Brilliant. And probably somebody holding the Green Party flag as well, looking at one of them. So, but I think all of that's great. Thank you very much. We'll try and pass that back in and say, we're talking about a few, we can start counting numbers. I think that last time I looked, it was 12 or 13,000 were going. So, but I think all of that's great. Thank you very much. We'll try and pass that back in and say, we're talking about a few, we can start counting numbers. I think that last time I looked, it was 12 or 13,000 were going. So it won't be a small number.
Right. And the only other thing, we talked about the consultation of business engagement. The only other thing is just a quick reminder that if you do want to respond to that onshore wind thing, it closes tomorrow. So that's the quickest way to do that, is go to that link and just
do the breakout at another meeting.
Yeah. I'm sorry to be lazy, but if you put that "we are possible" link into the chat now, then we'd be able to click on it and have that web page open when the meeting's over, and we can do our homework. Is that possible?
There's a link earlier in the chat to that.
That's why I said I'm being lazy. Let's put it. There's been a lot of chat gone under the bridge.
I'm doing it now, Andrew.
Super, thanks. Indulge.
Should we just, it's just a suggestion, Andrew, if we sort of close the sort of formal part of the meeting, and anyone who wants to stay on, we can then do breakouts and discussion. That makes sense for everybody?
Yes, thank you. Thanks everyone for coming. Names I didn't recognize, some super suggestions and requests from new people on arts, on various other things, on food waste, on I've lost track already. So much going on in the chat, so many people putting their hand up to do stuff, and we look forward to seeing those new faces again and again on doing these new initiatives. Thanks for letting us serve you on the core group, on the steering group, and some of you we hope will be joining us to at least taste and try it. We look forward to the next members meeting, and on the technical topic of our accounts and money, we in the process of separating our bank accounts from the voluntary organization that looks after our money. we'll be able to produce accounts for the year. And I hope that one of the things we do in this year is empower ourselves and our member groups to get a lot more grant funding from Wiltshire Council. That does involve some red tape, some policies, some constitutions and that sort of thing, but let's spend their money on getting them to do the right thing. Any other business in the formal sense for the AGM, please?
Well, I'd just say thank you very much to you, Andrew, for chairing so well. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thank you, Margaret. A hand up.
Just a quick one. It would be really good if all of the links that we want people to go to are sent out in an email to all of our members, not just the people who are here tonight, so that everybody has the opportunity to participate and maybe get their name on the list for tomorrow for that solar park, because we need solar, we need wind, we need insulation, we need the life of the universe and everything.
All those links were in the last newsletter, the ones about the consultation and so on, which did go to all members.
And Margaret, you took...
Right, can I just chip in here on communications? I just wanted to say it would be great if you can encourage members of your groups to actively subscribe to WCA, because we don't have every member of every group actually subscribed. You know, people have to opt in, and then as long as I've got their say so, then we can send them everything. But we can't send them general information unless they willingly ask for it. So yeah, we can't subscribe them for them, if you see, legally anymore. It's GDPR stuff and all that. But we do send out, as you know, Margaret, regular newsletters, and we'd love to build up our database and, you know, a lot more so that we can support you to get your message across as well. I'm going to be doing some work on the website, which I'd like to talk to groups about as well, in terms of improving what you can do on the website, improving the platform for you, hopefully, as well, so that you can post your own news and events and things like that. So definitely at the next meeting, we need to have a session dedicated to that kind of thing. So do have a about that in the next few weeks, and see ideas your members would like to us to sort of support them with.
Yes, thanks for that, Julian. Thanks, Margaret, for reminding us that us reaching out to our members is very important, telling us what we're up to, those of us who attend meetings. Not everyone can or will. And Hannah.
I just wondered, can I be a bit cheeky and plug an event we've got? We've got Rob Hopkins coming and giving a talk in Malmesbury on the 28th of April. And he's very inspiring and kind of in line with sort of local action. He's the founder of Transition Towns. And I'll just put the Eventbrite link in the chat.
Yeah, sure. We can put that on Facebook and our Twitter, and also you know, give it a plug in our events calendar, if you like, Hannah.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah, I'd definitely like to go to that. I've seen him speak before. He's very, very good. I definitely recommend people going along to that.
What's the name again of the person, the speaker?
Rob Hopkins from the Transition Movement. He was the founder of Transition Towns and so on.
That's great, thanks. And is there anyone else who wants to plug an event or hasn't spoken and wants to just say one thing before we formally close and move on to breakouts if there's enough of us? Going, gone. Okay, I declare that the formal meeting, the AGM, closed. And hello everyone. This is the regular members meeting now.
You close the screen, Julie.
Yeah, sure.
We've still got miraculously, we've got 19 people. That's enough to do some breakouts.